Let me ask you a question. Should Harvey Barnes play for Scotland at the World Cup next summer? Because that's the big debate that's been going on amongst the Tartan Army since we qualified for the tournament last week by beating Denmark 4-2 at Hampden Park. Should we or should we not try and call up Harvey Barnes for the next round of internationals in March and therefore take him to the World Cup next summer? But that terminology, try, is very important because we don't know whether or not Barnes would accept a call-up first and foremost. It's something we've done in the past and he's declined the opportunity. It's split the fans. Some fans are saying, no, he's had his chance. He didn't want it. He didn't fancy it back then. Where was he during the qualifiers? He's never played for us. Suddenly we're at the World Cup. He's potentially interested in representing Scotland. Nope. He's had his opportunity, but we'll stick with the players that got us to the World Cup in the first place. Thank you very much. On the other side of the fence, you've got the fans that look at Harvey Barnes and go, yeah, but look how good he is. He would walk into our starting 11, not just the squad, our starting 11. He would, assuming he would accept the call-up, instantly become one of our best players. It's split the Tartan Army and I want to discuss it. I want to chuck my 10 pence in and see what you guys think as well. Regardless of whether you're Scottish or not, you will have a view on this because you will support your country. You may have been in a situation where your country is looking to take a player that previously hasn't been interested in representing your country, so on and so forth. I think this is one of those situations that everyone can relate to, regardless of who you support or where you're from. So get involved in the comments. Don't be shy. Anyway, the Newcastle United winger, he's had his opportunity in the past to play for Scotland. Steve Clarke approached him years ago because he's eligible to play for Scotland through his grandparents. And on that occasion, Harvey Barnes said, no, thank you. He turned down the opportunity. Obviously, he still had dreams and aspirations of going on to play for England, had belief in his own ability that he could go on and play for England. And to some extent, he was right. He's picked up a cap in a friendly, in a non-competitive fixture. Therefore, he's still able to represent Scotland. But now at 27 years of age, there's a debate that Barnes would now be willing to play for Scotland, especially now we're at the World Cup. And Harvey Barnes has been asked about it on a couple of occasions in the last week. He was asked last week and then he was asked straight after beating Manchester City where he scored a brace as well. And they called him Harvey McBarnes. And he's answered it in a very politician-like manner, which is I'm focused on Newcastle, I'm focused on beating Manchester City. And he didn't really say either way whether or not he'd want to represent Scotland at the World Cup. But what he certainly didn't do was shut it down. There was no, oh no, I've still got dreams of playing for England. He didn't do that. I think what he said was the right thing in regards to keeping all of his options open. He's not committing to Scotland publicly, so we don't call him up. He looks a little bit silly. He's also not shutting the door completely. He's leaving all options, all cards on the table. I think he's putting the ball in Scotland's court, in Steve Clarke's court, going, go on, and you're going to ring me up? You're going to try and persuade me to play for you or what? And I think that's kind of where I am, that little bit in the middle, because I can understand why fans would say, no, he's had his opportunity, do one. But I can also understand why fans would say, yeah, but it's Harvey Barnes, you've got to call him up. I'm a little bit more the latter than the former. Here's where I am. I understand why Barnes rejected us a few years ago. He would have been in his early 20s and he would have looked at the England team and thought, do you know what, I'm backing myself to get in here. And I like players that have confidence in their ability and want to achieve what they want to achieve. So the fact that he wanted to play for England as an English player, it doesn't offend me. The fact that he preferred to play for England over Scotland also doesn't offend me. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. The fact that he rejected us doesn't bother me in the slightest. I understand why some will say, well, he's had his chance. And the bit that says, well, where was he during the qualifiers? Absolutely 100% true and applicable. Is he only interested because we're at the World Cup? Probably. Yeah, if we didn't qualify for the World Cup, would he be interested in switching to Scotland for the playoffs? Because we would have been, therefore, if we didn't beat Denmark, we would have been in the playoffs in March to go to the World Cup. Would he have said, right, I'm now going to represent Scotland at the playoffs, I'm going to try and get him to the World Cup? Probably not. I don't believe he would have. I believe he's only interested because we've got to the World Cup. So I completely get any fan that says, well, do one then. You're only interested because we've got there. But I'm on the fence that, well, he's too good. He is too good. It's also the position he plays as well. If Harvey I always call him Harvey McBarnes. If Harvey Barnes was a central midfielder, let's just say there was an English central midfielder that could play for Scotland. Let's take Dewsbury Hall. Not that he can play for Scotland, but he can play for Ireland, and there's a debate going around whether or not he should play for Ireland at the minute, Dewsbury Hall. If it was him, I'd say no. And I'll tell you why I'd say no. And that's because we've got a lot of options in the central midfield. I am more than happy with what we've got in our squad. Although they don't play as central midfielders for Scotland, we've got McTominay and McGinn. Ryan Christie doesn't really play central midfield for Scotland, but he certainly does for Bournemouth. Then beyond that, we've got Lewis Ferguson, we've got Billy Gilmore. Kenny McLean deserves to go after what he did against Denmark. We've got Lenny Miller. We've got some good young midfielders as well. So I think we're stacked in that area of the pitch. I don't think we need a central midfielder. But in terms of what Harvey Barnes offers, we don't have a left winger. We've got one winger in Gannon Doak, and we've seen the difference it made when he went off against Denmark. We had nothing. We had no outlet, no player able to run at the opposition at all. Barnes would walk into our starting 11. I think he would be our biggest goal threat. I think he'd be our most creative player as well. I think he'd be an excellent addition to the squad. But the way I see it, the way I convince myself and make it okay in my head as to why we'd call Harvey Barnes up, is because, and this part's an assumption, of course, you'd have him for the next World Cup. You'd have him for the Euros. So as soon as the World Cup's finished, you've got the Euro qualifiers. Barnes is there. He's a Scotland player now. Then hopefully we'll go to the Euros. Barnes is there, 29 years of age. Then it's the World Cup campaign. He's still there. So the way I look at it, if he was coming for the World Cup and that was it, I'd say, no, do one, you little rascal. What are you on about? Cheeky bugger. Jog on. But he's not. I think he's switching to Scotland, if he is willing, of course. There's just an assumption that he would be willing to play for Scotland now. But if he was willing to do it now and switch to Scotland now, I see it as he's committed to Scotland and that's it. Now, the bit in the middle is who approaches who. And I think I would be okay with it on the condition Barnes approaches Scotland. That Barnes reaches out to the Scottish FA, that Barnes reaches out to Steve Clarke and says, I want to discuss the possibility of playing for Scotland. I would like to represent Scotland. If he's the one that reaches out to us, I think that shows a lot. I think it demands a bit of respect as well. And I think that would mean a lot to me. I don't want us or Clarke in this situation to be the one chasing Harvey Barnes. I think no. A few years ago, I always think in negotiations and so on and so forth, someone's got the power. Someone's in the advantageous position. A few years ago when Clarke went to Barnes, he was, I wouldn't say he was begging Barnes, but it had been a hard sell to play for Scotland back then. We weren't at the Euros. But now we've been to the last two Euros and we're now at the World Cup. I think Clarke's within his right to say, we ain't coming running after you, boy. You've had your chance. It's now up to you to come to us and tell us that you're interested in representing Scotland and we'll consider it. We'll call you up in March, but we'll consider it. That'll be the official line out there. And I think if Barnes wants to play for Scotland and he reaches out and does things the right way on his part to show that he wants to play for Scotland, then I'd be okay with it. Because it's not like our team is currently made up of a load of Scottish players. We've got a lot of English players in the team already. And yes, a lot of them have only represented Scotland, only ever wanted to represent Scotland. Scott McTominay was there at youth level playing for us and only ever played for us. Some say it's because of Alex Ferguson, some say it's Jose Mourinho, possibly and probably both. But I know Fergie said to McTominay, you better play for Scotland. I think Mourinho said to him, go play for Scotland. Whatever. He's as committed to Scotland as the next person, even though he's English. So I'm okay with it. I feel like I'd be cutting my nose off to spite my face if I said no. But I do understand why people would say, no, I don't want Barnes in the Scotland squad. He had his chance, didn't want it, and he wasn't there for the qualifiers. But because of the qualifiers, because we're at the World Cup, that's why Barnes is interested in playing for us now. And I'm looking at the long-term thing, which is he'll be here for the Euros campaign and the next World Cup campaign. He's a better finisher than anyone else that plays for Scotland currently. He's arguably a better creative player than anyone that currently plays for Scotland. I'd be excited to see Harvey Barnes in the Scotland shirt. I think we'd have a good attacking option in that left wing position at the World Cup if he wishes to. That's what it comes down to ultimately. I think Clarke will want to call him up. I think Clarke would be interested in him. He's certainly been asked, and he's also been political with his answer, not committing either way. He has to. It's saving face, isn't it? That's what it all is at the minute. No one wants to say anything publicly that's going to make them look a little bit silly, because Clarke's already had a little bit of the embarrassment factor from Harvey Barnes by approaching him those years ago and being rejected. But I get why Barnes did it, and I get why Barnes is interested now. I would just like to see him in that Scotland team in March, getting ready for the World Cup, because when we go there, I don't want to make the numbers up. We've made up the numbers at the Euros. The last two tournaments we've been at, we were there just to make up the numbers. Our highlight came by winning a 0-0 against England. That's the reality of it. We've turned up and stunk the gaff out. I don't want to do that next summer. I want to get out the group. That has to be ambition. We've never done it. We've never got out of a World Cup group. That has to be the aim at next summer's tournament. Are you more or less likely to do it with Harvey Barnes in the team? It's more likely for me. Even if you only played one winger, and it's a bit harsh on Gannon Doak, but Barnes is better than Gannon Doak, much better than Gannon Doak at this point. I've got high hopes for the Bournemouth winger, but today, you can't compare the two. Barnes is a proven goal-scoring winger in the Premier League, and I would love to see him in the Scotland shirt next year. But on the condition he's the one that reaches out to Scotland to make it happen. That's my 10 pence worth.